a 72-square-foot solar-powered, prefabricated garden shed in Rockland County, New York, a district that just turned Republican in the House. A man you can see performing with Jay Alcovan in Syracuse, New York at the Funny Bone on Wednesday, 23rd of November, Thanksgiving Eve. A man suffering with the side effects of his latest COVID-19 vaccination booster, but powering through because he believes better to get the vaccine than the full-blown virus. Your host, it's Pete Dominic, everybody. Yeah, thank you, me. And hello to you. Welcome to today's show. Very excited to have you joining me, as I always am, because this podcast can't be successful without you joining me. So on the days that you don't press play or have time to listen, just go press play anyway so that I get the downloads, all right? Come on, just cheat. Just wake up, go through your to-do list, press play on Stand Up with Pete Dominic, even if you don't listen to it. And that'll be our way of rigging the system of podcasts. Now, I hope you listen to it. I hope you like it. And I think you will today, because I've got Christian and Ophira back together for the first time in a long time. Comedians Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg joining me, and we had a great conversation. Also had a great conversation and hang with over 50 listeners and subscribers at the Stand Up with Pete Dominic subscriber-only hangout last night. And I'm putting this together early on Friday morning. And as far as I can tell, Twitter is still up and working normally. Everybody was saying goodbye on Twitter last night. There were rumors that it was going down, that Twitter employees had been locked out and more. So not sure what to think or what to believe. But I will say there's a lot of sadness going around, and it's understandable. I'm certainly one of those people who loves Twitter and the community that I'm involved with and the people that I've met. And all of it, the thrill of being retweeted by Henry Winkler or just seen by Henry Winkler. Anyway, I hope it doesn't go down, and I don't know what to think. But as of now, it is still up. I guess the biggest news of yesterday was this from the current Speaker of the House.
Leader, Whip, there is no greater official honor for me than to stand on this floor and to speak for the people of San Francisco. This I will continue to do as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco, serving the great state of California, and defending our Constitution. And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility.
A little bit from Nancy Pelosi on the House floor. She also said it's been a pleasure to work with 3 presidents. Of course, she worked with 4, so I guess she's not counting Donald Trump. Mehdi Hassan on MSNBC last night had a cool little summary, interesting little recap of Pelosi. I'll just give you the first 2 minutes or so of it because I thought it was good. Here's that. A couple more things and we'll get to my guests.
Pelosi has represented California's 12th district in Congress for 35 years, and she plans to stay on in the House as a backbencher. It's difficult to quantify the sheer impact that she has had on American politics, having served as Speaker twice for a combined 8 years. The daughter of a mayor of Baltimore and the sister of a mayor of Baltimore, Pelosi's own political career, which began in 1987, has been literally, undeniably historic. She was the first woman to be House Minority Whip, the first woman to be House Minority Leader, and in 2006, of course, the first woman to ever be elected Speaker of the House of Representatives. In 2019, she made history again, becoming the first person in 6 decades to reclaim the Speaker's gavel after losing it. She also became the oldest Speaker in American history. For many liberals, she is the Queen, a hashtag resistance icon, the master of the clapback. For many on the left, she's an establishment centrist, too eager to compromise, a block on progressive priorities. But above all else, I think Nancy Pelosi is complicated. Yes, she mocked the Squad, dismissed the Green New Deal, and has protected right-wing anti-choice Democrats like Henry Cuellar. But she also, unlike Clinton, Biden, Schumer, opposed the invasion of Iraq. She made sure Ilhan Omar could wear a hijab on the floor of the House and was one of the earliest proponents of marriage equality. Simply put, for much of the past 2 decades, she has been the most powerful and consequential woman in American politics. It's impossible to sum up her complex legacy in 5 or 10 minutes. So today, I think it's worth highlighting what, in my opinion, has been her greatest achievement and her greatest failure as Speaker of the House. For her greatest achievement, well, tens of millions of Americans have health care today thanks to Nancy Pelosi's tireless fight to pass the Affordable Health Care Act in 2010.
We go through the gate's closed, we'll go over the fence is too high, we'll pole vault in. If that doesn't work, we'll parachute in, but we're going to get health care reform passed for the American people.
And she did, and they did, and President Obama gives her a tremendous amount of credit for that. Mehdi Hassan went on in that segment and gave both the good and the bad about Nancy Pelosi, but it was really great, and we need to take everybody in their full context, and I urge you to go watch it and think more about it. But new leadership in the House, younger leadership in the House on the Democratic side, so it'll be very interesting to see how they do over there. All right, I also wanted to share with you this great clip from CNN's Christiane Amanpour interviewing the brilliant Professor Scott Galloway about Elon Musk. I thought this was a really smart 2 minutes that I wanted to share. If you hadn't heard it, it's certainly worth listening to a couple of times.
Musk is unraveling before our eyes. You think and you fear that there's a cult growing around the personality of Elon Musk. You kind of made some parallels with Donald Trump. But so, develop that. How is he unraveling, and what does that mean for the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think we're seeing the unwinding, not of a company, but the unwinding of a person. And I believe it's a larger trend. As societies become wealthier, more educated, the reliance on a super being and church attendance goes down, but they still look for idols. Into that void has stepped technology leaders, because technology is the closest thing we have to magic. And, our new Jesus Christ was Steve Jobs, and now Elon Musk has taken on that mantle. And every ridiculously mean, nonsensical, irrational move he makes is somehow seen as chess, not checkers. We're just not privy to his genius yet. I think this is an individual who has demonstrated a total lack of grace, has no guardrails around him, and is going to see his wealth probably cut in half. This is already the second worst acquisition in history, just a week or 2 weeks after the close.
Is that because he's bitten off more than he can chew? Because most people believe his other enterprises are hugely successful. His competition
100%.
with NASA, his Tesla cars, Starlink, which is right now paying off in the battlefield in Ukraine so importantly.
Well, the warriors that returned in Rome after a huge victory, and they would have a ticker tape parade for them, and they would hire a slave to follow and shadow the person and whisper in the conqueror's ear, "You are only a man." I have never met a man or a woman that is infallible, Christiana. They all eventually screw up. A universal pillar of truth is that the universe doesn't want a consolidation of power among any country, any society, or any individual. This is someone who, in my opinion, shows a bit of a God complex, vastly overpaid in a fit of mania or seeing something we don't see. This is a company probably worth $10 billion that he paid $45 billion, and thinks he can lay off half the staff and treat them poorly and disparage them and not have any ramifications. I think, quite frankly, I think he's a terrible role model for young business people. You can't deny his incredible accomplishments, but now he's running 3 different companies. So this notion that there is a super being, I have found that notion never proves out.
Well said, Scott Galloway. I really like that clip and wanted to share it with you. And one more huge story yesterday, which is that the Senate voted to advance a bill to codify marriage equality into federal law. 12 Republican senators joining all 50 members of the Democratic caucus to advance the bill to codify marriage equality into federal law. Now, this does not necessarily codify same-sex marriage in the unfortunate event that the Supreme Court overturns the Obergefell case, but states would not be prohibited from refusing to recognize same-sex marriages. And we need, of course, federal codification, a federal law, but it would recognize all of the marriages in states that don't overturn it, much like how the abortion law is working out. At least that's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, just a few news stories from yesterday as we head into the weekend. But now let's get to my guests, because I had an awesome conversation recapping a lot and touching on several different things with both Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg, who I haven't gotten together in a few weeks. It was great to finally get them together. Of course, we had a lot of laughs as well. So let's get to that now. Christian Finnegan, Ophira Eisenberg, two of my favorite comedians. Look up all of their information on the show notes. Go see them live. Listen to Ophira's great new podcast. It's already great. Parenting is a Joke. And subscribe to Christian's awesome newsletter about music, which I absolutely love. And I don't know anything about music. It's called New Music for Olds. And now, let's do it. Christian Finnegan, Ophira Eisenberg. It's time to stand up with me.
And we are off, and they're both here, and I'm so excited that you're both here. I like to see you two.
We like to see you.
So
I mean, I don't want to speak for
nice to
Ophira, but I like to see you.
I like to see you. I like to see Christian, it's been a long time.
Yes, it has.
But now I understand part of the reason that you've been unavailable is because this is getting in the way of your gym time.
Me? Oh, me?
Yeah, what's going on?
Pete's blown us off the last 2 weeks.
Oh,
that wasn't
true.
my doing.
That is true. That is true. But yeah, are you going hardcore right now? Are you in a spurt of fitness?
I mean, I'm trying to go to the gym.
Come on.
Again for the first no, I mean, let's not overstate things. The amount of time at the gym it requires to make me look like this is not what it would have taken when I was actually in shape. This is I wouldn't have even broken a sweat 10 years ago. Doing what I did today, I would not look like this. But now I look like a wheezing, sweaty.
You are a bright color of a shade of red.
Yes, yeah. I look like I am mid-embolism.
Well, good for you. That's awesome.
The part that they're like, I don't know if it's working. That part
Sounds like you're making some very healthy choices.
You either need to work out more or not work out, because that's not the color a person should be.
So by the way, this is hilarious. I have tennis elbow, but it's from the iPhone. That's what I have it from, right? And part of the reason that is because the iPhone size is not compatible with my hand size, but they don't make smaller models anymore.
Oh, weird.
Wait, Christian, you actually sounded like you'd heard this before. This is a thing? I've not heard this.
I have sometimes my wrist, I think my wrist is screwed up from just holding that phone position. Yeah. And I definitely know my posture is terrible from just kind of looking down. Sometimes I will try to stand really erect and hold my phone, look like a weirdo holding my phone in front of me.
Well, hello.
Yes.
I am formally looking at my phone.
Is he shooting a TikTok video? No, he's just trying to counter his bad posture.
It's actually called iPhone thumb. They've even given it. It's not called Android thumb. Sorry, everybody.
Ouch.
Yeah. And
sick burn.
I finally went to see someone about it, and he was like, okay, here's what you shouldn't do for the next little while. Be on your phone. Here's some exercises you shouldn't do. Plank, cobra, downward dog, pushing against a wall, holding a thing. It was just okay, so I'm doing nothing.
Wow.
Ever again.
I read some story or saw a headline where future generations, our spines are going to be all effed up because of evolutionary effect of looking at down at our phones.
Well, and that had happened over such a brief period of time. Do you know what I mean? Over the course of 10 years, people's posture has just radically changed. You used to see those movies about the future, and everybody would look like those Close Encounters, tall and skinny with the big heads. No, I think we're going to look like S's. We're just going to look like creepy little snails.
Oh.
So I wanted to... I needed a little bit of sympathy. I got my COVID shot yesterday, and it really knocked me for a loop. I got my flu shot. No problems other than the old sore arm. And by the way, they always ask you, which arm do you want it in? And I've come to saying, listen, I sleep on my side. Don't a lot of people sleep on their side? So I want it. Ask me which side I sleep on. Anyway, no problems with
just an elaborate excuse. You wanted it in the butt cheeks. Is what I think you wanted.
Can you the last time I got it in the butt, is that not, this is Rite Aid, sir. So
can you put on some Sade first?
I got the flu shot, no problem. Got the COVID shot yesterday. That was
operator.
2 weeks ago. And, and then I got the flu shot, the COVID finally yesterday. And boy, today was a real
wash.
I love it though.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I like being sick after a vaccination shot because you know what it is. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like, oh my God, am I going to be sick all week or is this going to get worse? It's like, no, I have this 24-hour period where I can loll around and kind of get my wife to do things that she wouldn't ordinarily do, you know, like walk the dogs me or something like that. It's great. I love it.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
I got the flu shot and the COVID shot at the same time. Is that what you said you did, Christian? The flu shot and the COVID shot at the same time?
You guys are really ballsy.
I know. It felt big.
Right.
She was like, so we'll just do it at the same time. And then she goes, do you want both shots in the same arm? And I was like, what are you, a monster? No.
I had mine in the same arm.
Oh.
What?
Yeah. Why be sore on two sides? I'd rather just I don't know.
Decent point.
Yeah.
I didn't want it in my wanking arm. What?
Well,
I'm sorry. That's disgusting and not necessary.
It is disgusting.
I'm almost 50 years old. Stop it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm laughing for those.
You have people for that at 50. At 50, you have people for that.
Yeah, they're on.
It's what is I use Angie's List or
Angie's List. Also fix my roof. It was amazing.
You have a guy that comes over and jerks you off and fixes your stuff?
Yeah.
Wow.
Put up a few of our framed photos.
I mean, if I could afford it. So, okay. But anyway, you guys you both got both on the same day. And how did you do the next day?
Yeah, no, I thought I was weird. I didn't notice anything until it was 24 hours later and I felt so much better. And I was like, oh, and then I just feel like I don't listen to my body at all. I just ignore everything. I'm like, clearly, like, am I so out of touch with myself that I'm not even, cognizant?
I felt like it was like 16 to 18 hours before I really felt it. And then it was like, for me, the next 12 hours or so. Like I got mine at like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. And I felt like it was like at mid-afternoon the next day before I really started to
go down
to feel it. Yeah.
Looks good. You know, who's going to a drugstore and getting vaccinated at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night?
I know. Like, what fucking place was that?
Who's working?
Bad boys, rebels, you know.
I got a Subway sandwich and a vaccine. That's not a bad idea, actually.
Hey, Daddy-o, I'm here for that late night vaccine.
But I always hate when medical professionals are honest. And I mean this in this way, because the one that the COVID shot hurt, actually, going into the muscle, and the flu shot didn't. And I said to her, that's so weird. Are they different size needles? Because the COVID shot really hurt going in, but the flu shot didn't. And she went, no, I guess I just did the first one wrong.
Oh.
And I was like, what?
You're supposed to keep that part to yourself.
Yeah.
Dude,
you could literally tell me anything and I'd believe you. You didn't have to tell me the truth.
Right. Exactly.
I had dude while I was waiting, other dude and his wife was waiting, older dude, and he started screaming pretty loudly about COVID's killing people, the COVID shots killing people, like making. I'm like, oh, it was old Pete.
And while he was waiting for the vaccine?
I think that was what I was trying to figure out. I think they were waiting for the flu shot. And what I gathered was that they were okay with the flu shot that he was, but not COVID. I was like, oh, that would be an interesting person to interview. Like, what's the difference there, do you think? But
yeah, they have no idea. And the answer is they have no idea.
No, you think? God, I wanted to say something real bad, and I kind of wanted him to say something to me, but then my newer spiritual practice kicked in, and I was like, there doesn't need to be any me here. I don't need to actually take a stand today for any reason. I'm just here to get my shot, and I'm not going to convince this guy. But in my mind, I want to be like, you're fucking stupid. But
yeah. Instead, it was Stand Down with Pete Dominic.
That's right. There's got to be a lot more of that. A lot more of that. Yeah, my whole brand is crumbling because I've realized that I picked every fight in my life. And so now I feel like the new brand is going to be stand up sometimes. Sometimes. Not all the time.
Just let it go with Pete Dominic.
Yeah, put it in a bubble, blow it away sometimes.
Would you rather be right or happy with Pete Dominic?
That's my thing.
Oh my God.
There
right.
it is. There it is. Well, that's what I always picked. And it made me very unhappy.
Yeah, fleeting is happy is fleeting, right is forever.
I don't think that's the book. I want to read it all.
All right, you could go my route, which is to neither be right nor happy.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, why pick either, really?
All right, next topic. Ready?
Yes.
Is
Ding.
Wait. Okay, now I'm ready.
Okay. The monologue at Saturday Night Live given by the great Dave Chappelle, was it, as Jonathan Greenblatt said, was it anti-Semitic? Did you see it? Did you find any fault with it? Says here you're Jewish, Ophira.
It's out? It's out that I'm Jewish?
It says here.
According to my Google News alert.
On that list of Jews that you were provided with?
I have a scroll.
I am page 4 of the Old Testament begots. That's where you might find my name. So I get it. So yeah, I watched it, and I watched it very late at night. I came home from shows and I was like, I want to tune in and watch this. And I watched it, and I was expecting one thing and I got another. I will say that because I was reading about, there was some of the writers wanted to walk off, and there was all this kind of talk about that, but then nothing. And then I just kept hearing the wheels turning of what happened here? Why are we focusing on the Jews? Why are we focusing on the Jews? That's what I thought. Because of Kanye, obviously, but I was like, why? Why are we? Is it just? It was popular for a little while in the worst part of stand-up to basically make fun or take down trans people, and I feel like we've moved to easier territory. Jews. It's just it's almost hacky right now to have some anti-Semitic material.
Well, did Jews have feelings?
Ask the ones with the horns.
I mean,
that's where the feelings are kept.
That's where
they're stored.
Christian,
really.
What did you think of it? Well, go ahead, Ophira. What else?
Yeah, please.
I just watched the whole thing, and I will be honest. Some of it I was like, this is funny. I enjoyed some of it. Thought it was funny, but I just didn't understand the point other than just to be controversial.
I've had this theory based on nothing, that because he thinks, because he said it, that he's the best comic of his generation, the GOAT.
Yeah.
That it's his responsibility to push the boundaries so that lesser known comedians know where the rules are. And if he gets in trouble, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because most comedians that aren't well known get in less trouble. I mean, nobody's filming them and putting it out, or nobody cares, or I'm not sure. But the only other point I would say is, in this atmosphere with the spike in anti-Semitism and so on, it does seem like a little bit gratuitous for Chappelle to do that. But he's also friends with Kanye. It made sense. Christian, what do you think?
Yeah, as usually with this kind of thing, my opinions will please no one. I will say, as stand-up, just purely taking any moral part out of it, it was as good stand-up as I've seen him do in 10 years plus.
Okay.
Right. Much, much stronger and much better than anything I've seen on his last 2 or 3 specials.
You think the writers, you think the SNL writers wrote for him, or do you think that's
no? In fact, I know for a fact that that's not the monologue he did in dress rehearsal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I heard about this, but I didn't get in. Okay.
Yeah, I have a friend who works for the show, and they said that was not cleared. And so that's another thing that was a little weird about it, that I'm sure a lot of the cast members probably were hearing about this as they're getting ready for their next sketch, or getting ready for their first sketch. And so my main takeaway was as pure, again, just as a comic, I was very impressed by it. It made me not think very much of him as a person, but as a comic, I thought it was pretty impressive. But, I will say that he has a little bit of firmer ground to talk about this stuff than the trans stuff. I mean, I think Dave has always displayed a very keen insight on matters of race. Even when I don't agree with it, it's like he has perspective that's like, all right, I didn't think of it that way. That's not my perspective. But he obviously, as sort of as a black guy who has operated in white circles for the majority of his life, like even growing up, I think that he has an insight that I don't have. And I think that he kind of got it into his head that applied to everything. Well, if I'm really insightful about race, I must also be really insightful about sex and gender, which he's not. He knows nothing about that, and he doesn't get it. He sounds like an idiot, but he's got into his head that he's a fucking genius, so you can't tell him anything. With the he went out on a limb for Kanye a few years ago when Kanye was going nuts. Remember, he went out to Wyoming with him, and so I can see why he kind of, especially in quote unquote the culture, among black people, I think that black people would have been like, hey, you can't not address this. This is your friend. You've gone on a limb for him before, and so, I mean, I thought as stand up, like I said, it was impressive, but a lot of the things he said were dumb. The whole line that everybody was quoting, and this is my friend Todd Levin had mentioned this. I saw him say this in an email on an email list with some friends of mine. And he, the whole thing about, you call a bunch of Italians as a mob, and a bunch of, black people or a gang, whatever it was. Italians are a mob, black people are a gang. Jews, you can't. It's a coincidence. It's like, well, who calls Italians a mob and black people a gang? Racists. Right. I mean, not normal, not people that you like and that you respect. Yeah. So why are we, why are we like, we should be able to be racist against Jews the way that other people are racist against black people? It's kind of a weak argument in my mind. One thing that he did say that I feel like it didn't sit with people well, but I can see his point, is the whole thing about how, like, you can't blame the things that have happened to Jews to black Americans. There is a thing that, like, there is no part of society in which black people hold structural power over Jews or white people or anybody, really. There's really no segment of the culture in which black people hold institutional power over anyone else. And so I can see them saying, like, hey, all that bad shit that's happening to you, you can't blame that. Like, we're not part of that. Where I think he's wrong, or where I think he's being obtuse, intentionally obtuse, is that shit, it trickles down, and the people that you're inspiring are not other black people, because again, they don't have institutional power over Jewish people. The people you're inspiring are the white people who see Jewish people as a threat. Yes. And therefore you're giving them license to do something about that threat.
And I feel like that comes back all the time with comedy, is that you just go, someone says, well, I am and a lot of, I would say all these comics are just super smart. And it would be great if their audiences were super smart, be able to go through the fine details and sort of be like, well, this is about this and this is not cool. But all it does is give the lowest common denominator, like the most racist, sexist, people who are just ready to hate, and go like, yeah, see? Yeah. My voice.
And also, I mean, this is maybe getting too far off the reservation here, which is maybe a racist term. I don't know, but just randomly, this might be a little far flung. But it's like, the thing he's talking about. I've been to Hollywood. There's a lot of Jews, like a lot of them. It's like, that's true. I mean, in entertainment, that is true. But there's also, up until 20, 30 years ago, most cops in New York were Irish. Like certain cultures gravitate towards certain segments of the economy in certain fields. And that's just the way it's always been. And, you do what your parents did and the connections you have, like family connections. And so, I think somebody, I don't remember who was saying it, somebody was saying, like, nobody ever complains that white people dominate the energy sector. It's like, whatever. It's like, people have
dry cleaners. Do we want to do that one?
Yeah. I mean, there's, again, it's hard to not, all of a sudden you start doing a truly tasteless joke book. But, a lot of Indian people now own hotels, like motels. Like,
is that right?
That's sort of just the, certain immigrant communities sort of gravitate towards certain industries. And that's sort of a natural thing. And I don't think it's so evil. It's not, it just is.
A lot of women for years and still are teachers. I was trying to come up with a gender one. All very interesting.
To young grades, right? It's so weird when you look at all the young, like, elementary grades. You look at I look at the teachers in my school, and I'm like, they're all women.
Well, I wouldn't want to be a male teacher working in an elementary school, much less a high school. I mean, the way that we're looked at by, everybody, like, I don't think that's by the way, a liberal or conservative thing. I think I've always done, that's kind of, I love kids. And I did this joke for years in my act about being bald and white is creepy, and everybody's always, it just looks like a creepy look, this guy. So I'm walking up and playing with little kids, and the little kid, you know, they didn't learn this. I look like Skeletor, and they're like, get back. But the point is, men, like, it's like we're not allowed to be around kids to some extent. I've always kind of like felt that. I'm not dying on this hill or anything, trying to start a men's rights group, but I do think it's hard sometimes for us to be in jobs that are traditionally not only gender norms, but just like people think we're going to do something inappropriate.
Well, I mean, men have fucked other men in that respect. Do you know what I mean? Like sure. That so many men have abused those positions of power, and and whether it's nature or nurture, I mean, I don't want to just lapse into sort of traditional gender roles, but I mean, it is much more common for women to be more nurturing and caregiving oriented towards children than men. It's just whether it's nature or nurture or whatever, that's just...
Yep.
You would think with all the women's emotional issues, they would have a harder time working around kids. And that since men aren't as emotional, that we would be better with kids.
Right, exactly.
Did you just say women's emotional issues?
Yeah. Well, you think that they wouldn't have time to take care of kids because they're so busy hating each other, women.
I know, and menstruating. And like eating everywhere.
Super busy menstruating.
And shopping. We're always shopping.
I learned a thing. I always learn little things with my daughters. The other day, her friend.
I thought you were going to say with Jews for some
with Jews and girls, Jewish girls. No, the other day, my daughter's friend ran in the house. She's our neighbor, and it's fine. She ran in the house and like ran into our the little pantry closet where all the hygiene products are, and then grabbed something and left. And I was like pretty mad. I was like, "What are you doing?" I didn't say anything to her, and I went to Julia and I was like, "What was that?" And she's like, "She just needed a tampon." I was like, "Oh, well, like it's a weird for them to tell me, but you're going through my house and taking stuff." But it is this kind of unspoken. I felt bad after judging. I'm like, there is always this trade, this emergency if you don't have. And it's just definitely not a guy thing. There is nothing like that for men at all that we do. Hey, man, could you hook me up with a, it just doesn't exist. And
nothing that's not indefensible.
Right.
Yep. No man has ever said, "Oh, no, I don't have a condom."
So I wanted to ask you about this upcoming Thanksgiving week, if there's anything that we needed to address for the people in anticipation. Now, you're a Canadian.
Americans, yes. So I celebrated a month before because, as you know, we killed our Indigenous people a month earlier because it gets older earlier.
Is it it's a similar tradition?
It is, yeah. Yeah, and nobody, if I've tried to research why it's earlier, and there's not much comes up. It's not. It's just basically harvest season is earlier. Right?
I love it.
So there's a.
I've always loved Thanksgiving. It seems like the right time of year to just have a few days off, and I generally like my family, and so I'm really looking forward to. We're going up to my parents' house with the girls, and we're just going to shut it down for a few days. And that's
I think Thanksgiving is the most annoying, useless holiday.
Oh, go ahead.
Like, I find it just a pain in the ass every year. Like, yeah, I don't like it at all.
What is it that you don't like? The timing? You don't like the
well, it's just, first of all, the travel is too concentrated. Like, I'm not saying like I like days off like anybody, but it's like trying to. It's just a lot of stress for what ends up being like a 3-hour thing.
All right. Yeah. I see that.
I will say too long. I really, you know what I love? Going somewhere at 6 p.m. for dinner. Goodbye at 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But that's fine. But it's like, I don't want to have to drive to like up I-95 in bumper to bumper traffic to do that.
Right. Traffic is holiday traffic. I hear you. I wasn't even thinking of that. We're leaving a day early and coming back a day early. So it's to try to avoid
God.
a
That's
little
the whole
of that.
Thing. Are you going to make a turducken or like a New York turducken where you
there's
stuff a rat into a pigeon?
There's been some talk of things. There's no gluten really, so that'll be interesting. But but you don't like. What you're saying is you like dinner 6 to 8. You don't like sitting around watching TV for a while with the olds.
I don't. You know what? I don't get that. I don't get that at all. I feel so.
I don't mind that. I don't know.
I feel
to me, it's the travel.
Uncomfortable. I feel so uncomfortable sitting on a couch with a bunch of people that we see only once a year quietly while we all stare at a box.
I want so badly to just sit there and watch you experience that. That's hard for me to believe.
Like, either we're talking and relating or we're out. Goodbye.
You don't want to stay. You don't want to stay.
Are we talking? Are we relating? Then goodbye.
Goodbye.
Do they watch football at where you go?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go to Jonathan's cousins, and actually last year they played football. They did that thing that I've only seen in movies, right? Yeah, where you
we did that once.
Football.
They have a catch.
Yeah, that's a fun thing. We that was one of my favorite extended family things we ever did. We
read books. We do the crossword puzzle. No, we don't do that at all. That's not even remotely true. No, we're actually staying in the city because QED has to be open Friday and Saturday night. So we're doing a potluck, like a Friendsgiving at Thanksgiving at QED.
Good. Nice.
Fun.
Just like the QED staff and their plus ones. So it'll just be like 7 people. And so that's actually kind of like that. I'm actually sort of looking forward to because it's here. Although I'm going to do the turkey, I guess. So I have to go to Costco tomorrow.
Yes,
which
you
will
do.
Be fucking Mad Max, I'm sure.
Can you document that? Why wouldn't you? Just do it.
Because I'm too busy white knuckling through the experience every time.
No, that's why I want you to document it. Can you Instagram Reels it?
Yeah, I want to see how angry and furious you get.
I want to see you get...
sort of the way my face looks when I get back from the gym.
I really want to witness that. All right, finally, I want to get your reactions to the midterm elections and the announcement that Trump is going to run again and anything else that we wanted to discuss about.
Isn't it amazing that someone's only move to get them out of their legal battles is to run for president? It's insane.
I mean, I did murder a hobo last week, so I'm thinking of running for alderman.
It's like, is there any better way to make a mockery of the system?
Hold on.
It's like,
yeah.
I before we started taping here, I promised to a lot of people privately, if anybody used the words hobo and alderman in a sentence, they would win $1,000. So,
do you have a little
Hobo Alderman was actually also my favorite jam band in college.
Is that right?
Do you guys remember Hobo Alderman? There.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy situation that he's running again. But I do love that it seems like the Murdoch media the Trumpty Dumpty New York Post cover was quite satisfying. The Florida man makes announcement, the day after was quite satisfying. It seems
will they
like
maintain it? That's what I'm curious.
Everybody says they can't, but I'm never wrong, and I'm going to say they can. Always wrong.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy though is that it's like, DeSantis and whoever else is going to run, they really can't announce for like a year or at least like 6 or 7 months. So it's just really weird that there's just going to be a dude campaigning, quote unquote, just in February, 2.5 or, almost 2 years before the election. It's really
money.
I guess, man.
I mean, it would seem even his family has abandoned him.
Yeah, I mean, when you're like, if you don't have the steady hand of Jared on your side, I don't know. Like, think of the people that he would try to appoint in a second term.
I don't think they would be people. I think they'd be like fictional characters at this point.
Secretary of Defense, the general from the General Insurance commercials.
Rambo will be the chief of staff.
Chief of staff would be the wizard from Lord of the Rings because he has a giant staff.
Also leading the Joint Chiefs is this dragon.
But are the Democrats responding with any special counsel to start working on the fact that it's this can't happen because of the following?
Well,
reasons.
I mean, everybody, Christian had a prediction.
I think there's been precedent already that you can run while you're under indictment. Sure. I don't remember. It's like some smaller race. It wasn't president, but it was like, a representative or something. Like, I think it's the Supreme Court has ruled that you can do it.
Well, he hasn't indicted yet. Right now, he's under investigation in several places, but he's not been.
Right. Yeah. Let's get going with these fucking indictments, please. Can we? I mean, I thought the whole point was that they didn't want to do it during primary season, or I know.
And now they're waiting.
Season.
Like they're like not doing Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Let's get back to everyone before Christmas.
World Cup.
I don't want to ruin Valentine's.
Yeah.
So, what else about the outcome of the midterms? Are you surprised? Are you happy? What do you think happened in New York? Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you guys. I've been talking about it all week with everybody, and I've had arguments with SE Cup and John Avalon about this because where I live, the crime hysteria really worked to scare people. And
100%.
I live in the third safest county in fucking America. I've said that 100 times this week. And so people then talk about, well, a lot of people go into New York or work in New York. I'm like, okay, let's talk about New York. I send my daughters into New York. You know who else lives in New York? Like millions and millions of people with their kids as well. And so, SE Cup was like, I feel less safe over the past few years and started mentioning the subway pushings and this and that. You two live in New York. Ophira, you have kids. What's kid? What about all the crime stuff?
I take the subway at 1 a.m. Listen, the subway pushing thing, we all know exactly the truth about what that was, who the people who did it were, how many times that happened. It did not happen 100 times.
I looked it up and thought I saw it is like 22 people have been on the tracks, but most of them weren't necessarily pushed. One time there was a fight and a guy fell on the track, and one person I read died in one of those, but maybe I'm wrong about it. I don't know.
But I mean, recently I feel like that stuff has happened ever since I moved to New York. It's just, we used to just be like, crazy fucking New York City. And now it's like, I think a lot of it is a lagging tail on the pandemic, because during the real dark days of 2020, when the city was just empty and I was going in to do those like outdoor shows, there was a creepy vibe in the city because there was no street traffic, but the homeless people had nowhere to go. So instead of 1 out of every 30 people on the street being homeless, it was 1 out of every 4. Because, all the people who weren't homeless were staying in their homes. And so there was definitely a feeling of anarchy for about 7 months in 2020 to 2021. And people let that get into their heads.
And also, right, because all these social services and so many even shelters closed or were reduced, that there was, in some way, so there was those people who had nowhere to go, but also hotels decided, I don't know I have no idea what the exact arrangement was, but many hotels were like, well, we will house these people. So then there would be people in front of the hotels that seemed like, I don't know, they were bumming cigarettes, they were hanging out, they were going nowhere. That's
people
where
neighborhoods that they weren't usually in, and then you elect a fucking cop as a mayor whose entire point is to make people scared of crime and to act like, that we need to just get down on our knees and blow the NYPD every day and thank them for our, that we're not being murdered on a daily basis. And that shit trickles down. It trickles down and it gets in the New York media market runs with it. Yeah. And obviously it's like,
they love it.
Yeah. It's like crime, especially in New York, was this year's caravan.
Yep. Yep. Last year it was CRT.
Yeah.
And this year it was crime, which mean the same thing, by the way. Black people to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
have you heard the new subway announcement that happens every few stations now?
What?
Where a kind female voice says, next stop 34th Street. MTA riders, police are available on this platform if you require any assistance or have questions.
Well, I didn't until you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I'm also like, where?
Oh, you mean that dude picking his nose over while he's hitting on some female passenger? Like,
that's right. Scrolling through Facebook Messenger.
It's even worse. I actually heard a subway announcement last night, and it was just as I walked through the valley of the shadow of death.
Is that right?
It was crazy. That felt a little morose. It felt a little hardcore.
So what would the conclusion be in terms of, how, I mean, I think you've already said it, but it was a ghost issue. It really was just something. There was these feelings as a result of the pandemic that you're saying, but I mean, in terms of it being a campaign issue, certainly in the suburbs where I live, it's crazy because people here don't know anybody who knows anybody who's been a victim of violent crime. I mean, it's it's not a thing. It's the safest place.
I think that there probably was a slight rise in sort of petty hostility in New York that was pandemic related. And also just a feeling of that. I think obviously the masks put people on edge and were annoyed by it. Either were you wearing one, were you not wearing one? And so everybody had their fucking dukes up. Everybody was sort of at battle stations, and there's sort of a general rise in just a tension level in New York. But that's not crime, and it has nothing to do with some right. You can comb through data and make it prove whatever you want to prove. But I think that largely subsided in 2021. And I don't notice any difference at all in the city right now. I mean, anecdotally.
Right. I was actually thinking about that today because I was like in and out. I was in and out of Midtown, and then I was in and out of the West Village. And I was like, oh, wow. This, other than the fact that there's still the sidewalk restaurant shanties, everything else, I was like, it really does it's starting to look like it used to look.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that is...
We just jinx ourselves. We're all going to get murdered tomorrow.
As I thought it would be. Thank you for clearing that up for me. I was pretty
It would
worried.
Still, just so you know, listeners, it would still be only 2 people.
That's
murdered.
right. Don't.
When you hear 2,000, don't believe it.
If just the 2 of you
let me die in vain, please.
Christian, Ophira, thank you, as always.
I am thankful for you, Pete.
Yeah, there they go, everybody. I'm thankful for them and for all of you, as I said at last night's Hangout. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you to all of my excellent guests this week. If you missed anything, go back to any of these episodes. Obviously, go to standupwithpete.com or wherever you're subscribing here on the podcast. Next week, a whole bunch of great guests. I will be posting every day next week. Even though it's Thanksgiving week, I'll still post them up because I've got a whole bunch of guests in the can and more that I'm going to be talking to, including Barry Ritholtz, comedians Gary Cannon and Jordan Carlos, scheduled to talk to Matt Lewis and Eric Siegel, and more. So stay tuned for that next week. Subscribe with a paid subscription if you haven't already, and have an awesome weekend. Stay in the moment. Be mindful. That's all I've got for you. You guys are the greatest for listening and subscribing. Tell your friends. Give a review on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/standupwithpete. And that's it. I'm out. Done plugging. Is Twitter still on? Let's go check. Love you guys. Talk to you tomorrow or next week or whatever.